Have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone's words or actions just seem to set you off? Maybe it's a coworker who constantly interrupts you, a friend who never seems to listen, or even a stranger who cuts you off in traffic. That rush of frustration or anger can feel overwhelming, like it's completely out of your control. But what if I told you that the key to staying calm in those moments doesn't lie in changing the other person's behavior? It lies in mastering your own mind. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most renowned Stoic philosophers, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This simple yet profound idea is at the heart of Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that offers timeless tools for navigating life's most challenging interactions. It's not about suppressing your emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about understanding what's truly within your control and choosing how to respond with clarity and purpose. In this video, we'll explore how Stoic principles like cognitive reframing, emotional detachment, and focusing on what's within your control can transform the way you handle those moments when people push your buttons. Whether it's a heated argument, a frustrating conversation, or just someone getting under your skin, you'll walk away with practical strategies to stay grounded and composed, no matter what's happening around you. So, let's dive in and uncover how Stoic wisdom can help you find calm in the chaos. Have you ever stopped to think about why certain situations bother you so much? What if the way you see a situation is actually the real problem? This is where Stoicism offers a profound insight. Our reactions aren't dictated by the events themselves, but by how we perceive them. The ancient Stoics believed that external events are neutral. They don't inherently carry meaning. It's our judgments, our interpretations that give them power over us. Take the example of a rude coworker. You might feel anger or frustration when they speak to you in a dismissive tone, but here's the Stoic perspective. Their behavior is outside your control. What is within your control is how you choose to interpret and respond to it. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, taught that the key to calm lies in distinguishing between what's within our power and what isn't. Your coworker's rudeness, that's their choice, not yours, but your reaction. Your decision to stay composed or to let it upset you, that's entirely up to you. This doesn't mean you ignore the behavior or pretend it doesn't matter. Instead, it's about reframing the situation. What if their rudeness isn't about you at all? What if it's a reflection of their own struggles, stress, or habits? By shifting your perception, you take back control over your emotional state. Suddenly, their words lose their sting, and you're free to respond with clarity rather than reactivity. So, here's a question to reflect on. How often do you let others' actions dictate your peace of mind? The next time someone pushes your buttons, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this situation truly as bad as it feels, or am I giving it more weight than it deserves? By practicing this kind of awareness, you're not just managing your emotions. You're reclaiming your power to choose how you experience the world. Stoicism teaches that peace comes from letting go of what you can't control. This simple yet profound idea is at the heart of staying calm when people push your buttons. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus put it perfectly when he said, "Some things are in our control and others are not." What he's pointing to is the dichotomy of control, a foundational Stoic principle that helps us focus our energy on what truly matters, our thoughts, actions, and reactions. Everything else, it's outside our control, and trying to manage it only leads to frustration and stress. Think about it. When someone criticizes you, insults you, or behaves in a way that irritates you, their words and actions are not within your power. You can't force them to think differently or act the way you want them to, but what you can control is how you respond. Do you let their behavior dictate your emotions? Or do you take a step back, Recognize what's within your power and choose a calm, measured response. This shift in focus, from what's happening to you to how you're responding, can completely change the way you experience conflict. Here's a practical example. Imagine you're at work and a colleague makes a snide comment about a project you've been working hard on. Your first instinct might be to fire back or dwell on their words, replaying the moment in your head. But if you apply the dichotomy of control, you'll realize their comment is outside your control. What's within your control is how you choose to process it. You can remind yourself that their opinion doesn't define your worth, and you can decide whether to address it calmly or simply let it go. By focusing on what you can control, you take back your power and reduce the stress that comes from trying to manage the unmanageable. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one thing you're trying to control that's actually outside your power? Maybe it's someone else's opinion, a situation at work, or even the way a loved one behaves. Recognizing this can be the first step toward freeing yourself from unnecessary worry and finding a deeper sense of calm. The Stoics remind us that when we stop trying to control the uncontrollable, we open the door to true peace, not because the world changes, but because we do. Let's take a step back in time to the Roman Empire, where Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most famous Stoic philosophers, faced immense challenges as both a leader and a human being. Instead of seeing obstacles as setbacks, he famously wrote in his personal diary, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This idea that challenges are not just hurdles but opportunities forms the heart of Stoic cognitive reframing. It's about shifting your perspective so that what feels like a provocation or an attack becomes a chance to grow, to test your character, and to strengthen your resolve. Think about it this way. When someone pushes your buttons, it's easy to react defensively, as if their words or actions are a direct assault on who you are. But Stoicism asks us to pause and ask, what if this isn't about me at all? What if instead this is an opportunity to practice patience, to exercise self-control, or to cultivate understanding? That's the essence of reframing. It's not about ignoring the frustration or pretending it doesn't hurt. It's about choosing to see the situation differently, as a test of your inner strength rather than a reflection of your worth. Let's bring this down to a more relatable level. Imagine you're at a family gathering and a relative says something that feels dismissive or critical. Your first instinct might be to react, to defend yourself, or even lash out. But what if you paused for a moment and reframed the situation? What if you saw their comment not as a personal attack, but as a chance to practice patience, to extend grace, or even to deepen your understanding of where they're coming from? That shift in perspective doesn't just diffuse the tension, it transforms the moment into an opportunity for growth. Seneca, another Stoic giant, once said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." In other words, the challenges we face, especially those involving other people, are like mental workouts. They stretch us, push us, and ultimately make us stronger. When someone provokes you, it's not just a test of your ability to stay calm. It's a chance to build emotional resilience, to refine your character, and to grow into a more grounded version of yourself. So here's a question to consider. Can you think of a recent conflict or moment of frustration in your life? How could you reframe that situation as an opportunity, not just to prove your patience, but to practice it? Because that's the real power of cognitive reframing. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing to see the hidden potential in every challenge, no matter how small or large. And when you do that, you're not just reacting to life, you're shaping it. What if you could observe your emotions without being ruled by them? This is the essence of emotional detachment, a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics didn't deny that emotions are a natural part of being human. Instead, they taught us to recognize them without letting them take control. Think of it like watching a storm from a window. You see the rain, hear the thunder, but you're safe inside, unaffected. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, our emotions are shaped by how we interpret events, not the events themselves. By shifting our perspective, we can prevent emotions from dictating our actions. Let's take a common scenario, an argument. Imagine someone says something that triggers anger or frustration. In that moment, it's easy to react impulsively, letting the emotion take the wheel. But what if instead you paused and observed your anger as if it were a passing cloud? You'd notice it, acknowledge it, but not act on it. This detachment allows you to respond thoughtfully rather than react emotionally. It's not about suppressing feelings, it's about choosing how to engage with them. So, what emotion do you struggle to detach from? Is it anger, fear, or perhaps frustration? How might you approach it differently if you saw it as something separate from your core self? By practicing this kind of awareness, you can begin to cultivate a sense of calm even in situations that once felt overwhelming. Emotional detachment isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about reclaiming your power to choose how you respond. And in doing so, you create space for clarity, peace, and resilience. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. In a world where we're constantly pressured to react, whether it's to a rude comment, a heated argument, or even an online provocation, silence can be the ultimate act of strength. The Stoics understood this deeply. They saw silence not as weakness or avoidance, but as a deliberate choice to maintain control over our emotions and actions. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, often emphasized the importance of stepping back from unnecessary conflict. He believed that by choosing silence, we give ourselves the space to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. And in doing so, we preserve our peace of mind and dignity. Think about how this applies in modern life. Imagine scrolling through social media and coming across a comment designed to provoke or insult. The immediate urge might be to fire back, to defend yourself or prove a point. But what happens when you don't, when you simply ignore the comment and move on? That silence isn't surrender, it's a statement. It's a refusal to engage in someone else's chaos, a quiet declaration that their words don't hold power over you. This is Stoicism in action, choosing not to let external forces dictate your emotional state. Silence also gives us time to process. When we pause instead of reacting, we create a moment of clarity. It's in that pause that we can ask ourselves, does this situation truly deserve my energy? Is responding going to serve a purpose, or will it just escalate the tension? Often, the answer is clear. Walking away, staying silent, is the wiser, more stoic choice. So, consider this. When was the last time silence helped you diffuse a tense situation? Maybe it was during an argument with a loved one, a confrontation at work, or even a moment of self-reflection. Silence isn't just about avoiding conflict, it's about reclaiming your power. It's about choosing how you want to engage with the world, rather than letting the world dictate your reactions. And in that choice, there's immense strength. What if the person pushing your buttons is struggling too? It's easy to react with anger when someone irritates us, but Stoicism invites us to pause and consider their perspective. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When someone does you wrong, immediately consider what good or harm they thought would come of it." This isn't about excusing bad behavior, it's about understanding the human condition. People often act out of their own pain, stress, or ignorance, not because they're trying to hurt us. By shifting our focus to their struggles, we can dissolve the tension and respond with calm instead of frustration. Think about a time when you've dealt with a stressed colleague. Maybe they snapped at you during a meeting or ignored your ideas. It's natural to feel slighted, but what if their reaction had nothing to do with you? What if they were overwhelmed with deadlines, personal issues, or self-doubt? When we practice empathy, we see their actions as a reflection of their inner world, not as a personal attack. This doesn't mean we tolerate mistreatment, but it does help us approach them with patience and clarity rather than anger. So, how can you approach a difficult person with more understanding? Start by asking yourself, what might they be going through? This simple question can open the door to empathy. It doesn't require you to solve their problems or become their therapist. It's just a mental shift that helps you stay grounded. When you see someone's actions as a result of their own challenges, it becomes easier to detach from the situation emotionally. You're not letting them off the hook. You're choosing to respond from a place of strength rather than reactivity. Empathy, in this way, becomes a tool for self-mastery. It allows us to maintain our inner peace even when others are at their worst. And isn't that what Stoicism is all about? Not controlling the world around us, but mastering how we respond to it. By practicing empathy, we not only reduce our own anger, but also create the possibility for more meaningful connections, even in the midst of conflict. Stoics believe that living virtuously is the highest good. It's not about how others see us or what they do to provoke us. It's about how we choose to respond. Virtue, for the Stoics, is the foundation of a calm and centered life. Patience, kindness, wisdom, and self-control are not just ideals. They're tools we can use to navigate even the most challenging interactions. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Think about that for a moment. True freedom isn't about controlling what happens around us, but mastering how we react to it. Let's take kindness as an example. Imagine someone is hostile toward you. Maybe they're rude, dismissive, or even aggressive. Your instinct might be to fire back to match their energy. But what if instead you chose kindness, not because they deserve it, but because it aligns with the kind of person you want to be? That's where virtue comes in. It's not about winning the argument or proving a point. It's about staying true to your principles even when it's hard. Now, let's make this practical. Think about a recent situation where someone pushed your buttons. What virtue could you have leaned into more? Maybe it's patience when you felt rushed, or self-control when you wanted to lash out. Virtue isn't about being perfect. It's about making small, intentional choices that build your character over time. The more you practice these virtues, the less power others have to upset you. You become the master of your own emotions, and that's where true calm comes from. So, the next time you feel provoked, pause and ask yourself, what virtue can I bring to this moment? It's not about changing the other person, it's about changing how you respond, and that's where the real freedom lies. How often do you let past grievances or future worries cloud your reactions? It's easy to get caught up in what went wrong yesterday or what might go wrong tomorrow, but Stoicism teaches us that the only moment we truly have control over is the present one. This is where the practice of presence comes in, a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy that aligns closely with modern mindfulness. As Seneca wisely put it, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. How many times have you felt anger or frustration, not because of what's actually happening, but because of what you're imagining might happen? Think about a heated discussion you've had recently. Maybe someone said something that triggered you, and your mind immediately raced to past arguments or future conflicts. But what if, instead of reacting impulsively, you paused and brought yourself fully into the present moment? Stoics believed that by grounding ourselves in the here and now, we can respond with clarity and calm rather than being swept away by emotions. This doesn't mean ignoring the past or the future entirely. It means not letting them dictate your reactions in the moment. Take a moment to reflect. What's one way you can bring more mindfulness to your daily interactions? It could be as simple as taking a deep breath before responding in a conversation or noticing when your mind starts to wander into unproductive territory. The practice of presence isn't about perfection. It's about small, intentional steps that help you stay centered, even when others push your buttons. By cultivating this habit, you'll find that you're less likely to overreact and more likely to respond with the kind of calm, rational mindset the Stoics champion. A moment of pause can save a lifetime of regret. Think about that for a second. How many times have you said or done something in the heat of the moment, only to wish you could take it back? The Stoics understood this deeply, which is why they placed such importance on the practice of pausing before reacting. It's not about suppressing your emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about giving yourself the space to respond rather than react. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. In other words, take a moment to ground yourself in who you want to be, calm, rational, in control, and let that guide your actions. This tiny gap between stimulus and response is where your power lies. It's where you can choose to act with intention instead of being swept away by impulse. Here's a simple example. Imagine someone criticizes you, maybe even unfairly. Your first instinct might be to snap back, to defend yourself, or to lash out. But what if instead you took a breath and counted to 10? Those few seconds can completely change the trajectory of the conversation. They give you the chance to step back, assess the situation, and decide how you want to show up. Maybe you'll realize the criticism isn't about you at all. Maybe you'll see an opportunity to respond with grace rather than anger. That's the power of the pause. So, let's make this personal. What's one situation in your life where a pause could change your reaction? It doesn't have to be a big, dramatic moment. It could be something as simple as a frustrating email, a tense conversation with a loved one, or even a moment of self-doubt. The next time you feel that initial spark of emotion, try this. Stop, take a breath, and ask yourself, what would the best version of me do here? That small shift can make all the difference. The Stoics weren't just talking about avoiding regret. They were teaching us how to live with intention. Every pause is an opportunity to align your actions with your values, to choose wisdom over chaos. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. It's like building a muscle, one that helps you stay calm, even when the world feels like it's pushing your buttons. What if no one could truly offend you without your consent? It's a powerful question, and one that lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. The idea here is simple yet transformative. Taking offense isn't something that happens to you. It's something you choose. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's most famous practitioners, put it perfectly when he said, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." Those words are a reminder that our reactions, not the actions of others, are what shape our emotional experiences. Think about it this way: when someone makes a snide remark or says something hurtful, their words are just words. They don't have any inherent power over you unless you give them that power. For instance, imagine you're in a conversation and someone throws a biting comment your way. Instead of reacting defensively or letting it sting, you could choose to see it as nothing more than noise, a reflection of their own struggles, not a judgment of your worth. By refusing to take offense, you strip the remark of its power and protect your inner peace. This isn't about ignoring genuine harm or dismissing valid feelings. It's about recognizing that many of the things we feel offended by are, in the grand scheme of things, minor. They're moments we can choose to let go of rather than cling to. So, what's one thing you've taken offense to recently that you could release? Maybe it was a passing comment, a dismissive look, or even a perceived slight. What would it feel like to simply let it go, to refuse to let it take up space in your mind? The Stoics believed that our greatest strength lies in our ability to control our perceptions. When we stop handing over the reins of our emotions to others, we reclaim our power. It's not easy, of course. Unlearning the habit of taking offense takes practice. But every time you choose not to be harmed, you're building resilience, one small decision at a time. And over time, those decisions add up, creating a life where you're no longer at the mercy of other people's words or actions. Gratitude is a Stoic tool for maintaining perspective, and it's one of the most powerful ways to keep calm when people push your buttons. Think about it. When you're feeling frustrated or provoked, your focus naturally narrows to what's bothering you. But gratitude acts like a mental reset button, shifting your attention to what's good and meaningful in your life. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that our peace of mind isn't determined by what we lack, but by how we perceive what we already have. Here's how it works in practice. Imagine you're dealing with a difficult coworker who seems to know exactly how to irritate you. Instead of letting their behavior consume your thoughts, try shifting your focus to something you're grateful for, like a supportive friend who always has your back. By doing this, you're not ignoring the problem, but you're refusing to let it dominate your mental space. Gratitude helps you see the bigger picture, reminding you that one negative interaction doesn't define your day or your life. This practice isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing where to direct your energy. When you actively appreciate the good in your life, the provocations of others lose some of their sting. You start to realize that their actions say more about them than they do about you. So, take a moment to reflect. What's one thing you're grateful for that helps you stay calm? It could be something small, like a quiet morning with your coffee, or something larger, like the unwavering support of a loved one. Whatever it is, hold on to it. Let it anchor you when the world feels overwhelming. Gratitude isn't just a feel-good exercise. It's a practical, Stoic strategy for maintaining your calm and reclaiming your power in challenging moments. By focusing on what you have rather than what you lack, you create a buffer against the chaos around you, and that's a skill worth cultivating. What if you didn't feel the need to prove yourself in every argument? What if, instead of fighting to be right, you could step back and let go of the urge to win? This is where humility comes in, a powerful yet often overlooked tool for staying calm when people push your buttons. Humility isn't about thinking less of yourself, it's about thinking of yourself less. It's the ability to recognize that your perspective isn't the only one that matters, and that sometimes stepping back is the most powerful move you can make. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." This is a profound reminder that when we approach conflicts with arrogance or the belief that we're always right, we shut ourselves off from growth and understanding. Humility, on the other hand, opens the door to learning. It allows us to see where we might be wrong, to listen to others without defensiveness, and to prioritize peace over pride. Think about a time when you were in a heated disagreement. Maybe someone criticized you, or perhaps you felt your ideas were being dismissed. In those moments, it's easy to let ego take the wheel, to dig in your heels and fight back. But what if instead you paused and considered the possibility that you might not have all the answers? What if you admitted fault, even if only partially? This small act of humility can completely shift the tone of the conversation. It disarms the other person, reduces tension, and often leads to a more constructive dialogue. For example, imagine you're at work and a colleague points out a mistake in your project. Your first instinct might be to defend yourself or explain why it's not entirely your fault. But what happens if you respond with, "You're right, I missed that. Thanks for catching it"? Suddenly, the conflict evaporates, the other person feels heard, and you've created space for collaboration rather than confrontation. Humility doesn't mean surrendering your values or letting others walk all over you. It's about choosing your battles wisely and recognizing that not every disagreement needs to be a fight. When was the last time humility helped you diffuse a tense situation? Maybe it was with a friend, a family member, or even a stranger. Reflect on how that moment felt. How much lighter and more manageable the situation became when you let go of the need to be right. By embracing humility, we not only avoid unnecessary conflict, but also cultivate deeper connections with those around us. It's a quiet strength, one that allows us to remain calm and centered, even when others are trying to push our buttons. And in a world that often rewards loudness and assertiveness, this quiet strength can be your greatest asset. Self-reflection is the key to mastering our emotions. When we take the time to pause and look inward, we gain the clarity needed to understand why we react the way we do, and how we can respond with greater wisdom in the future. Stoicism places a strong emphasis on this practice, encouraging us to review our actions, thoughts, and feelings at the end of each day. Why? Because it's through this process that we uncover the patterns in our behavior, recognize where we fall short, and identify opportunities for growth. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once advised, "Assess your day before you sleep." This simple yet profound habit allows us to step back and observe ourselves objectively, almost as if we were reviewing the performance of someone else. Imagine, for instance, a difficult conversation you had earlier in the day. Maybe someone said something that triggered frustration or anger, and you reacted in a way you later regretted. By reflecting on that moment, what was said, how you felt, and how you responded, you can begin to see the triggers more clearly. Was it the other person's words that upset you, or was it your own expectations and assumptions? This kind of insight is invaluable because it helps us take responsibility for our emotions rather than blaming external circumstances. Journaling is one of the most effective tools for this practice. Writing down your thoughts forces you to slow down and process what happened, and it creates a record you can revisit over time. For example, let's say you had a challenging interaction with a coworker. In your journal, you might write about how their criticism made you defensive, and you might explore why that was. Did it touch on a deeper insecurity? Was there a way you could have responded more calmly? Over time, this kind of reflection helps you spot recurring themes in your reactions and gives you the chance to prepare better responses for similar situations in the future. So, what's one thing you could reflect on to improve your reactions? It doesn't have to be a major event. It could be something as simple as a moment when you felt impatient in traffic or frustrated with a family member. The goal isn't to dwell on mistakes, but to learn from them. By making self-reflection a daily habit, you'll find that you become more aware of your emotional triggers and better equipped to handle them with grace and composure. And that's where true growth begins. What if peace comes from accepting reality as it is? This is a question Stoics have wrestled with for centuries, and it's at the heart of their philosophy. At first glance, acceptance might sound like giving up or resigning yourself to circumstances. But in Stoicism, it's something far more powerful. It's about freeing yourself from the unnecessary struggle against what you can't control. Think about it. How much of your frustration comes from resisting things that are already happening? The traffic jam that makes you late, the unexpected change in plans, or even the way someone else behaves. These are often beyond your influence. And yet, we often pour energy into fighting these realities, only to end up feeling drained and defeated. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it this way: "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish, but wish for everything to happen as it does." It's a profound shift in perspective. Instead of trying to force the world to fit your expectations, you align your expectations with the world as it is. This doesn't mean you stop caring or striving for improvement. It means you stop wasting energy on what's outside your control and focus instead on how you respond to it. Take something as simple as a traffic delay. You're stuck in your car, running late, and the frustration starts to build. You honk the horn, check the clock, maybe even mutter under your breath. But none of that changes the situation. What if instead you took a deep breath and accepted that this is how things are right now? You might still be late, but you'd arrive with far less stress, and maybe even a clearer mind for whatever comes next. So, what's one thing you struggle to accept that's beyond your control? Is it a person's behavior, a global event, or even something as small as the weather? The moment you stop resisting and start accepting, you'll notice something remarkable. The weight of frustration begins to lift. Acceptance isn't about giving up, it's about choosing peace over resistance. And that's a choice you can make in every moment, no matter what life throws your way. Stoics believe in preparing for adversity to face it with courage. This isn't about expecting the worst or living in fear. It's about building mental resilience so that when challenges arise, they don't catch us off guard. By anticipating difficulties, we reduce their emotional impact, making it easier to respond with clarity and calm. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "The wise man anticipates the blows of fortune and softens them." In other words, when we mentally prepare for what might come, we're less likely to be overwhelmed when it actually happens. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you're about to have a tough conversation with a coworker or a loved one. Instead of avoiding the thought of it or hoping it will go smoothly, a Stoic would suggest preparing for it. You might think about what could go wrong. Perhaps the other person becomes defensive or the conversation veers off track, and plan how you'd respond calmly in those situations. By doing this, you're not only equipping yourself to handle the unexpected, but you're also reducing the anxiety that often comes with uncertainty. You're softening the blows before they even land. This practice isn't just about imagining the worst-case scenario, though. It's about building a mindset that says, no matter what happens, I can handle it. It's about cultivating a sense of inner strength that allows you to face life's challenges without being derailed by them. So here's a question for you. What's one challenge in your life right now that you could prepare for in this way? Maybe it's a difficult decision, a looming deadline, or even a recurring situation that tends to push your buttons. Take a moment to think about how you might approach it with a Stoic mindset, anticipating, preparing, and staying calm no matter what comes your way. What if this moment, this frustration, is just a tiny chapter in the story of your life? It's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment, to feel like every slight or irritation is a catastrophe. But Stoicism invites us to step back and see the bigger picture. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "Think of the whole of existence of which you are the tiniest part." That line might feel humbling, but it's also liberating. When we zoom out, we realize that most of the things that upset us are small in the grand scheme of things. Take something as simple as a disagreement with a coworker or a family member. In the moment, it might feel like a huge deal. Your heart races, your emotions flare, and you're tempted to react impulsively. But what if, instead of reacting, you paused and asked yourself, will this matter a week from now, a year, even 5 years? Chances are it won't. Perspective helps us see that these moments are fleeting, and overreacting only amplifies their significance. Let's bring this to life with an example. Imagine you're in a meeting and someone criticizes your idea. Your first instinct might be to defend yourself or even lash out. But if you pause and remind yourself of the bigger picture, that this is just one moment in your career, one opinion among many, you can respond with calmness and clarity. Instead of letting the criticism derail you, you can see it as an opportunity to grow or to understand a different point of view. So how can you train yourself to step back and see the bigger picture when emotions are running high? One practical way is to create mental checkpoints. Before reacting, ask yourself, how does this fit into the larger story of my life? You might even visualize a timeline of your life, stretching far into the future, and place this moment on it. Does it still feel as overwhelming? Often it won't. Perspective is a tool, and like any tool, it takes practice to use effectively. But when you do, it can transform how you handle challenges. It doesn't mean ignoring your feelings or pretending everything is fine. It means acknowledging them while also recognizing that they're part of a much larger, ever-unfolding story. And in that story, you have the power to choose how you respond. Letting go is the ultimate act of freedom. Think about it. How often do we hold on to things we can't change, clinging to outcomes or situations that are entirely out of our hands? Stoicism offers a powerful perspective here. The less we try to control the uncontrollable, the more peace we find. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, put it perfectly when he said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. In other words, freedom isn't about gaining power over the world. It's about releasing our grip on what we can't change. When we try to control the uncontrollable, we set ourselves up for stress, frustration, and disappointment. Imagine holding onto a grudge, replaying the same argument in your mind over and over, wishing the other person would see things your way. The truth is, you can't control their thoughts or actions, but you can control how you respond. By choosing to let go of that grudge, you reclaim your peace of mind. You stop carrying the weight of someone else's choices and focus instead on what you can influence, your own thoughts, actions, and emotions. This practice isn't always easy. We're wired to want certainty, to feel like we have a say in how things unfold. But Stoicism reminds us that true strength lies in acceptance. It's not about giving up or being passive. It's about redirecting your energy toward what truly matters. When you let go of the need to control everything, you create space for clarity, calm, and resilience. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one thing you need to let go of to find peace? Maybe it's a past mistake you can't undo, a relationship that didn't work out, or even the pressure to meet someone else's expectations. Whatever it is, consider this your invitation to release it. Because in the end, letting go isn't about losing control, it's about finding freedom. What if courage is the key to staying calm under pressure? At its core, Stoicism teaches us that courage isn't about the absence of fear, it's about moving forward despite it. When someone pushes your buttons, it's easy to feel cornered, defensive, or even overwhelmed. But courage allows us to face these moments with clarity and composure. Seneca once said, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." And isn't that true? Every day, we're faced with situations that test our patience, our resolve, and our inner peace. Courage is what helps us meet those moments head-on, not with avoidance or aggression, but with a steady mind and a calm heart. Take, for example, standing up to a bully. It's not about shouting back or escalating the conflict. It's about calmly holding your ground, refusing to let their words or actions dictate your emotions. That's courage in action, choosing to respond with strength and dignity, even when every instinct might be screaming to react differently. Stoicism reminds us that we can't control what others say or do, but we can control how we respond. And that's where courage shines, in the quiet, deliberate choice to stay composed, even when everything around us feels chaotic. So let's pause for a moment. What's one situation in your life where you could show more courage? Maybe it's a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, or a challenge at work that feels overwhelming. Perhaps it's simply choosing not to let someone else's negativity dictate your day. Whatever it is, remember that courage isn't about grand gestures. It's about the small, everyday decisions to face life on your own terms. And when you do, you'll find that staying calm under pressure becomes not just a possibility, but a way of being. Patience is the antidote to frustration. When someone pushes your buttons, it's easy to feel that immediate surge of irritation, that urge to react. But Stoicism reminds us that patience is not just a passive act of waiting, it's an active practice of self-control. It's about choosing to endure the things we cannot change without letting them disturb our peace of mind. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing." What he meant was that life isn't always graceful or easy. It's often messy, challenging, and full of obstacles, but patience is how we wrestle with those challenges without losing our footing. Think about a time when you were stuck in a long line at the store or caught in traffic. It's easy to feel frustrated, to let that tension build up inside you. But what if, instead of resisting the situation, you accepted it? What if you saw it as an opportunity to practice patience? Stoicism teaches us that these moments are not just inconveniences, they're training grounds for our character. Every second you choose to remain calm in the face of delay is a victory over your own impulses. This doesn't mean you have to like the situation or pretend it's not annoying. It simply means you recognize that your reaction is within your control, even if the circumstances are not. Patience allows you to step back, breathe, and respond rather than react. It's the space between what happens and how you choose to handle it. So ask yourself, what's one area of your life where you could practice more patience? Is it in your relationships, at work, or maybe even with yourself? The more you exercise this virtue, the more you'll find that frustration loses its grip on you. And over time, patience becomes less of a struggle and more of a strength, a quiet power that keeps you steady no matter what life throws your way. What if every reaction is a choice you make? It's a simple question, but it holds a profound truth that Stoicism invites us to explore. At the heart of this philosophy is the idea that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can control how we respond. Think about that for a moment. No matter what someone says or does, the power to choose your reaction lies entirely within you. This isn't just a comforting thought. It's a game changer when it comes to staying calm under pressure. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it this way: "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." These words remind us that our inner world, our thoughts and emotions, is where true freedom resides. Someone might push your buttons, but they can't dictate your response. That's your domain. And when you fully grasp this, you start to see that every reaction, whether it's anger, frustration, or calm, is a choice you're making, consciously or not. Let's bring this to life with an example. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting, and the driver in front of you cuts you off. Your first instinct might be to honk, yell, or let frustration take over. But what if in that moment you paused and chose kindness instead? Not because the other driver deserves it, but because you deserve the peace that comes with staying calm. That small shift, choosing a different reaction, can change the entire tone of your day. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one reaction you could choose differently today? Maybe it's responding to criticism with curiosity instead of defensiveness, or choosing to let go of a grudge that's been weighing you down. When you start seeing your reactions as choices, you take back control. And that's where true calm begins. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about understanding that you have the power to shape them, and that power, once you embrace it, can transform not just how you handle challenges, but how you experience life itself. Resilience is the Stoic superpower for staying calm. It's that inner strength that allows us to face challenges, recover from setbacks, and emerge even stronger. Think of resilience as a muscle. It grows stronger the more we use it. And in the Stoic tradition, this muscle is essential for handling provocations and staying grounded when life throws curveballs our way. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." What he's telling us is that adversity isn't something to avoid, it's something to embrace. The friction, the challenges, the moments that test us are all opportunities to grow. Imagine you've just faced a major setback at work. A project you poured your heart into falls apart. It's easy to feel defeated, to let frustration take over. But a Stoic mindset would see this as a chance to practice resilience. Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, you focus on what you can control, your response, your next steps, and the lessons you can take from the experience. Here's the thing about resilience: it's not about avoiding pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about acknowledging the difficulty, learning from it, and moving forward with purpose. When someone pushes your buttons, resilience helps you pause, take a breath, and choose how to react. It's the difference between snapping in anger and responding with clarity. So, how can you start building this Stoic superpower in your own life? Maybe it's by reflecting on a recent challenge and asking yourself, what did this teach me? Or perhaps it's setting small daily goals to practice patience and self-control. Resilience isn't built overnight, but every step you take strengthens your ability to stay calm under pressure. What's one way you can start building resilience today? So, we've walked through the core Stoic principles that can help you stay calm when others push your buttons. At the heart of it all is perception, how you choose to see and interpret the actions of others. Remember, it's not what happens to you that matters, but how you respond. Next, we explored the idea of control, focusing on what's within your power and letting go of what's not. And finally, resilience, the ability to bounce back, to stand firm in your values even when the world feels chaotic. These principles aren't just abstract ideas. They're tools you can use every single day to navigate life's challenges with grace and clarity. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic thinkers, once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Think about that for a moment. Your thoughts shape your reality. When someone tries to provoke you, it's not their words or actions that define the moment. It's how you choose to process and respond to them. That's where your power lies. Now, it's time to ask yourself, how can you start applying these principles in your own life? Maybe it's taking a deep breath the next time someone says something that triggers you. Or perhaps it's reminding yourself that you can't control others, but you can always control your own reactions. The beauty of Stoicism is that it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Small, consistent steps can lead to profound changes over time. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. What's one situation where you've struggled to stay calm, and how do you think these Stoic principles could help? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you found this video helpful, consider subscribing for more insights into living a more thoughtful, resilient life. Remember, the journey to inner peace starts with a single step. Let's take it together.